Good morning, guys. Tony Maritato here. So in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 steps in selling your physical therapy business in 2023. Today is actually the end of 2022. We're looking at November 22nd today, and I'm putting together this list. It's part of an article that I've published on chooseptfirst.com. If you're not familiar with the website, go check it out. You can create a free listing today, or you can do a premium listing to get better organic rank on Google for your physical therapy clinic. But let's talk about the 5 steps in kind of creating and selling your physical therapy business, because I think all of us as practice owners should have some sort of exit strategy in place. And the earlier in the process we start thinking about these 5 steps, the better chances we have to not just sell your practice, but sell your practice in a way that we want to sell our practice. And I'm going to talk about that in step number 5. So number 1, we first have to think about who is going to be the person or the entity that buys our business. There is kind of a sweet spot where a small business can be sold to an individual. Maybe a business that's doing $100,000 in EBITDA earnings, net profit, $100,000 a year, you sell for a 3 times multiple to another physical therapist. They can usually get loans or finance for a $300,000 transaction, especially if they can put 20% down and then finance the rest. Then if you're looking at a big transaction, you might be looking at a $2 million, $3, $4 million net profit practice that's selling for 3 to 5 time multiple. They're selling to a private equity. They're selling to a group of investors. You know, again, they're going to have financing in place. They're going to have money ready to buy that practice. The dead spot, the hardest, most challenging business to sell is the one in the middle. Is maybe a practice with a sale price of $1 million. It's not enough for private equity to come in and buy, but it's too much for a small independent individual to finance and get the money for it. If you are going to be in that place, we want to start looking at who potential buyers can be. And some of the recommendations I make in the article, maybe you want to sell to a chiropractor. Maybe you want to sell to a licensed massage therapist, an athletic trainer. You want to sell to somebody who's not a physical therapist, who's already in business, and they're looking at acquiring your business as an expansion to their existing business. Whatever the scenario ends up being, you need to identify who is your target customer. Just like you want to know who your patient, your ideal patient avatar is, you want to identify who the potential acquiring body is for your business. Now, step number 2, we want to develop a win-win situation. Both the buyer and the seller have to come out ahead in order for the transaction to happen. And historically, we think of, if I'm a winner, you're a loser. But the reality is, when selling a business, both individuals, both parties can be winners. So for example, if I'm going to sell a practice at that $300,000 price point, I want to take that $300,000. Maybe I'm going to move into a new investment. If that $300,000 becomes a 20% down payment, I can finance $1.5 million purchase. You know, so the idea is that yes, I'm going to exit with $300,000, but I'm going to take control of an asset that could be worth $1.5 million. So I am winning because I'm gaining the advantage of leveraging time, leveraging money. The person on the buyer side, if it's an independent physical therapist who wants to step into entrepreneurship, wants to own their own practice, maybe they can buy my existing $300,000 practice with financing by putting a 20%, $60,000 down to close the purchase. Now, they save the time. They could build it from scratch, but if you've ever built a physical therapy practice, you know that it takes 6 months to a year just for referral sources to know that you're going to exist. Then it takes another year or 2 to really kind of build a foundation, start getting patients, get word of mouth. So you can accelerate a 3-year process into a day by essentially purchasing what's there. And again, you get the benefits of leveraging the money. You put $60,000 in to finance the purchase of a $300,000 asset. So you can absolutely create win-win scenarios. Maybe you have something proprietary. Maybe you have a unique competitive advantage that somebody coming in to buy you is going to get the benefit of. You have to identify how both parties can win. Now, in step number 3, we want to look at eliminating the roadblocks. There's always going to be roadblocks that come up. Maybe you can proactively go out and find a lender who is going to finance the deal for a qualified buyer. Maybe you can go out and proactively look at your third-party payer contracts, because there are going to be some that are transferable, there's some that are not, but then there are going to be some that a buyer might not want. So me, for example, if I was going to buy a Medicare practice, I would not want to assume the Medicare existing contract, because with that contract, I gain all of the risk and liability of past documentation, audit risk, and problems with false claims. Now, there's no limitation to me starting a brand new Medicare contract for a brand new company. I would rather come in, start a new contract for a new company in that physical location, in the clinic space. This way I avoid all of the risk and liability that the previous practice owner had. But if there is a contract that's closed to new providers, then there is value to assuming that existing contract, and along with it, the provider enrollment. So you just have to understand, what are the roadblocks that are going to come up? How can you preemptively avoid those roadblocks before getting to the point of negotiating the actual transaction? Next, we want to talk about, are you going to use a broker or are you going to do it yourself? There's pros and cons to both. You know, brokers are great because they have a Rolodex, they have contacts, they know who is probably going to be looking to buy the practice that you're trying to sell. The downside to brokers is it's a pretty expensive commission. I went to Biz Buy Sell. The commission is usually around 10 to 15%, which is, in my opinion, extremely high. And my biggest frustration with the way the broker model works is a broker is incentivized to try and get you to drop your price. If you're selling a $300,000 practice, a broker gets you to negotiate down to $250,000. The broker is only losing about $500 at a 10% commission. You're losing the difference between the $300,000 and the $250,000. You're losing upwards of $50,000. But the idea is the broker wants to get it sold as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible, at a reasonable price. Their incentives don't align with the risk that you're assuming. Now, if you choose to do it yourself, one of my favorite ways to do it yourself relates to step number 5. And that is, look at building and selling the business to the team that you've created that's running the business for you. Like, what better acquisitioner, what better buyer is there ever going to be than the team that has been running that business with you for the last couple years, the last decade. When I sold my clinic in Florida, I sold it to the team that had been running that clinic for me for over a decade. They came in, they secured financing, they purchased the clinic, and within a couple of years, they grew to multiple locations. Right now, they have 6 clinic locations that they grew from the first clinic location they bought. They already knew the clinic was successful. They already knew the patient population. They already knew the challenges they would face. They knew the opportunity that they had in front of them. And what was so rewarding for me was the fact that it was my opportunity to give back to the people that really had sacrificed alongside with me. And it's just been great. It's been so fulfilling for me to be able to sell that business to the people that really were instrumental in building it, growing it, and maintaining it. So guys, if you're looking at selling your physical therapy practice in 2023, I would tell you, consider these 5 steps. Certainly there is far more that you have to consider, but this will kind of help you get the ball rolling. This will get you thinking in certain directions. And then I would tell you to look for the resources that are out there. Look at Dave Kittle from the Dave Kittle Show. He's doing an amazing job sharing content on how to acquire, how to sell, how to improve the valuation of your clinic. Look at websites and marketplaces like Biz Buy Sell. There's a lot of physical therapy clinics available on that marketplace, and you can look at the financials and kind of some of the high-level numbers to get a sense for what the physical therapy practice market is. And then, of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, keep following. I will continue to share content on this topic and other topics related to PT, OT, SLP success. Thanks for watching.